Welcome back, y'all. I don't know if y'all's groups were as rich as ours, but I hope so for your sake.
Making it a competition there.
It wasn't a competition. I wish abundance on everyone. That's what I'm trying to say.
I feel you.
Sending goodness and richness to all of you. Wishing that on you.
Our awesome group receives it with open arms.
So do we have everybody? Beautiful. Okay. Well, I would love to hear y'all get active in the chat, just sharing back, tidbits, things that stuck out to you from each of those conversations that we had in the breakout, so we can kind of paint a picture together in the chat of what everyone talked about. While we are doing that, I have to hand it over to Charlotte Pate, our Farmer Support Coordinator Extraordinaire, to open the session formally.
Thank you so much, Alice. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. My name is Charlotte, and I have the great honor of introducing Liz and Jason, who are joining us today. We're so glad that you're here. I'm going to read through some bios that they provided and start us off with our session. So here we go. Liz Moran Stelk uses she, her pronouns and has served as Executive Director of the Illinois Stewardship Alliance for 5 years. She's a veteran organizer bringing experience in sustainable agriculture policy and building powerful organizations to the Alliance. Liz previously served as a regional director with the Western Organization of Resource Councils in Montana, where she worked with farmers and ranchers in 7 states on local, state, and federal food and agriculture policy. She formally organized union healthcare workers and led fieldwork for a variety of grassroots and electoral campaigns. Welcome, Liz. Everyone gives a shout out to Liz. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Jason uses he, him pronouns and is first generation in his family born off the farm. After graduating from college, Jason returned home to Pitt County with a vision of teaching in public schools. In 2013, Jason began working with and quickly became manager of a community garden in Greenville, North Carolina. He also registered the first urban farm in his town, selling organic vegetables to local CSAs, juice companies, and a mobile food market. Jason developed a youth agriculture training program, Cultivating Youth Entrepreneurs, CYE, and an urban farm school curriculum. Cultivating Youth Entrepreneurs graduates have gone on to establish their own production farms and enroll in universities seeking agriculture-related degrees. Jason continues to be an educator and serves as a consultant to local farms and organizations on best practices, certification, and operation management. With a clear calling for his work, Jason continues farming and building farmer-to-farmer relationships as a means to establish self-sustainable food systems throughout our communities. Welcome, Jason. Welcome, welcome. So just a little bit of an intro to this session. We want to be talking about organizing with ASAN. It's been over a year since, about a year since the board decided to move us into doing organizing work. And this is on a precipice for us. You know, in our network, we're deciding what's important to us. We're understanding together what organizing means. So we're so excited to have Jason here from SAAFON and Liz here from the Illinois Stewardship Alliance to be able to teach us about what they've been doing in their networks. The kind of organizing that both Liz and Jason are doing is relational organizing. And this is something that we really believe in at ASAN too. We believe in the indispensable approach of relational organizing, and that's why we've invited them here, because this approach is steeped in the tradition of building deep relationships, and this being the fire for the work. In other words, nothing for us without us. And I'm reminded of words that came up in the breakout groups, words from Ruby, actually. I'm lifting you up, Ruby, if that's cool. You talked about how organizing for you is about like bolstering each other and helping each other fight back against the messages that aren't in the best interests of the community. And Charles was talking about people helping people, and that among people, you've shared stories of yourself, and that you can really bring yourself and bring that to the work, and the trust building that comes from that. And that being that fuel, that fire, that relation is the thing that's building the organizing. And some organizing isn't fueled by that. And so it's a very particular tradition of organizing that we're talking about here today. And we're so excited to hear from both Liz and Jason the strategies, the methods, the tactics that they use within that tradition of collective liberatory organizing. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Liz. Thank you so much, Liz. I'm excited to hear from Jason after Liz. And then after that, we're going to have some room for Q&A. So if you have questions that come up for you, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll hang on to them until the presentations are done with. So thank you so much, Liz.
Thanks, Charlotte, for that kind introduction and for setting the ground for today and for the opportunity to be here. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Liz Moran Stelk. She said, I'm the Executive Director of Illinois Stewardship Alliance. We're a statewide nonprofit member organization founded in 1974. I want to just tell you a little bit about myself. After a career of as a union and a community organizer. About a decade ago, I went to work on a farm for a year. This is me selling at the farmer's market in Livingston, Montana. I worked on the farm long enough to know that I don't have the chops for farming myself, but selling at that market made me realize that if we organized farmers and the eaters who love them and their products, that we can have the power to change the food system. So I'm going to talk about that today, how we at the Illinois Stewardship Alliance are building a powerful alliance of farmers and eaters who use our voices and our choices to shape a more just and regenerative food system. And by that, we mean that we know that we should buy local and organic and sustainable food as much as we can, but we aren't going to buy ourselves out of this industrial food system. We also need to use our individual and our collective voices to shift the policies that are at the root that keep the food system the way that it is. We're a tiny but mighty organization, and we have a remarkable record of success working to win on good issues. And that's because we build strong, trusting relationships with and among farmers, and farmers are organizing themselves, and they're winning and they're building power. I'm going to tell you more about that through a story of two of our farmer members, how they led a campaign that's made a real difference in their lives and others, and how it's building power. And that it helps describe how we think about organizing in Illinois. So this is, let's see, can you see Derek? Can you see Derek and Libby? All right, I'm doing things right. This is two of our farmer members. They're a delightful couple from Southern Illinois. She works a few farms off the job, and Derek is an artist and a real genius in the kitchen. They've been leaders in our organizing and helped lead our biggest campaign of the year that I want to tell you about. They run Glacier's End Farm. It's a 37-acre farm named for the area in Illinois where the glaciers stopped their southward crawl and left a noticeable sort of scarring on the landscape. But I want you to hear directly from them. So I have a short little video that I want to show you now, and then I'll be back.
We met in Chicago about 6 years ago, ended up getting married, and we were just kind of got to the point where we were realizing, do we want to buy a place in the city, or what do we want to do, And it just so happened that at the time my grandfather's health was kind of failing him. He was 88. We had the opportunity to come down and kind of take care of him for a while and take care of the farm.
Hey, Liz, I think the audio's cut out.
Start bringing Southern Illinois back. Years ago, when I would come down to visit my grandfather, I thought this would be an amazing place for an orchard. We had also developed a taste for hard cider. It's just like something clicks.
We realized we could develop the farm into something, into a business, but also give something to the community, bring some unique things to it.
Decided to come down, start throwing trees in the ground and making the farm our own.
We really knew nothing about farming. We became connected to the Illinois Stewardship Alliance to kind of expand our network, because when we moved down here, we didn't really know anybody. So the Stewardship Alliance has been great for that. It's not just down here, it's statewide. So we've met a lot of great people.
When you plant fruit trees, there's a lag in the time where you're going to have fruit. Little did I know, the new cottage food law had been enacted, which the Alliance had worked on so hard. It had been such a revolutionary thing. That change has been a big boost to small business. We were waiting for our trees to mature. And so we thought, well, why not try to look into this? We just started looking at the farm and finding stuff that we could use, turning that into product, going to the market and selling it. And that is moving us through that transitional period from where we started and where we will be as a cidery and as a winery in the future. For that law to change, I mean, literally everything we do right now, we would not have had the opportunity to do it. I mean, it wouldn't have been allowed.
These are drinking vinegars. It's hard for up and coming cottage food makers to find a place to sell their stuff at.
I feel that is probably the main thing holding us back from going to a mid-sized business. Opening up the arenas that we can actually sell our goods at, it would be a huge benefit. The Alliance allows us to come together as small farmers and entrepreneurs.
It's bringing together people from all throughout the state to broadcast and amplify our voice, write policies, and talk to politicians.
And say, we are a collective of people who want change.
Derek and Libby, that we're going to talk about the main thing that was holding them back today, and that's so first, Derek and Libby, they make these unique jams and jellies and barbecue sauces and shrubs and hot sauces. We learned from them through our relationship building one-on-ones and from farmer meetings was that the current cottage food law limited sales to only farmers markets. So when he talked about the main thing holding us back, it was that they couldn't sell their cottage food products at fairs and festivals or home delivery or shipping. And this became especially problematic during the pandemic when farmers markets didn't open or were really scaled back. So we understood the law because we helped write it in 2012, but we only had the power to get sales at farmers markets. So we identified a problem with a solution, and farmer members voted to make expanding cottage food our primary campaign issue. The proposal was two things. One, it was open up direct to consumer sales avenues, including home, like selling from your home, selling at fairs and festivals, having home delivery and shipping products, and to include buttercream ice cream buttercream icing as an ingredient, which the bakers are really excited about. So winning this would be a great victory, but it would reduce all the good reasons for cottage food. It reduces food waste. It's year-round income for farmers. It's an opportunity to test the market, and for eaters, of course, it means more great, unique local food. But we don't just work on any issue because it's a good idea. It also has to meet some good issue criteria. So we're a small group with really limited resources, I think a lot like ASAN. And we need to carefully deploy those resources. So we want to do it in a strategic way that will make the biggest impact. So a good issue is something that would make a real difference in people's lives and advance our mission, right? To drive local food and sustainable agriculture. By our best estimate, it should be realistically winnable based on our research and what we can find out. And that doesn't mean that we don't take on harder issues. It just means that we need something to start with that we know is winnable, and it should have a clear target decision maker, someone who can actually meet our demand. There are some others. It should be easy to understand. There should be a clear time frame. It should help build leadership, and expanding the cottage food law, it really met all those criteria. And it wasn't just the right thing to do. It was strategically important. We know, frankly, we all know that very powerful interests benefit from the status quo, and that that's supported by policies at all levels. So to have a chance at changing that, we need to have campaigns that help us build power. And so I just want to take a really big step back and just tell you that we see organizing around policy as a tool, a vehicle to build power, and that we need power to have a just and sustainable food system to change the policies. So policy is both a means and an end. So we get to accomplish something, but in the process, we're building the organization, developing our leadership, practicing what we call the muscles of democracy and our voice, and we're becoming more visible and harder to ignore. So there's 3 pieces that sort of make every campaign has to do. It has to change policy. So it has to actually improve lives. It has to build the organization, and it has to shift narrative. And by that, we mean change what people believe is possible to win. And combined together, these 3 help us build power and give us the ability to make change. I know that often I think power gets a really bad rap, and it can make people feel cringy. But I think Dr. King reminds us, though, that power is benign. It's the ability to achieve a purpose. Whether it's good or bad depends on the purpose. It can be used for good or bad. The 2 sources of power are organized money and organized people. At the Alliance, we know we're never going to be able to compete with organized money, but we can organize people and our own money consistently and persistently. And people in power with resources, they know this, they don't take breaks from being involved, and they keep relationships with decision makers and maintain access. So I find this model really helpful to describe what we mean when we're looking for, do we have power? You can see is you move from powerless to powerful. You move from being like not on the radar to having a seat at the table. And on cottage food, for example, the Alliance has the ability to make a deal. This can be simplified into the 3 R's of organizing. First, you need recognition. You got to be seen, or there's not a you to respond to. You've got to, you may get recognition, but it doesn't mean that you have respect. So respect is if your calls get returned, people show up to meetings on time, they consult with you, you're in relationship with them, and then you get results. And that's what we're going for. But we don't just, we're not just focused, we're also focused on strategic places that are really important. So ultimately, although we're talking about state policy, where we're building is to change the Farm Bill and to change federal policy. And that means that we need to target our work in the congressional districts where there's people writing the Farm Bill. So Illinois has 5 members of Congress that are on agriculture committees. And you can see the blue star down there is where Glacier's End is at. But these are the areas of the state that we organize everywhere, but these are the ones that we're most invested to make sure that we have a strong base and members in these districts. So back to the Home to Market campaign, where did we start? So we built on the work that we had already done. After we had helped pass the first cottage food law, we worked with Extension, our state's Extension, and the Public Health Department to create a guide. And this guide here has been downloaded over 3,000 times. And those downloads, people that downloaded those provided their contact information. So we had a real place to start. So we used our database to find cottage food producers who were also farmers. And we conducted an organizing drive to meet with them one-on-one and build a campaign committee and bring them into the organization. Derek and Libby were among the first leaders in the campaign committee who helped develop the campaign plan to pass the Home to Market Act. And I'm just going to tell you about a few tactics that we used. So I think they're really important and they're also really exciting. One of the best tactics that we have at our disposal as a farmer and eater alliance is legislative farm tours. They're a key opportunity for farmers to connect with potential champions. The farmers will share their story, show them the farm, and then make an ask for a specific piece of, either carry a bill or champion an issue. Here, that's Mitch, another member with For Lee's Farm in Central Illinois, sharing his story with the minority leader in the House. I just want to say to farmers on the call, you have a really incredible asset at your disposal. you have a place that policymakers want to see, and they want to hear how they can help you. And so we conduct farm tours mostly all summer long, whenever the weather is good. So the other thing that we've gotten used to now is lots of virtual. So during sessions, we recruited leaders who organized virtual in-district meetings to help identify champions for the home to market bill. Derek and Libby were among those leaders, but as it turned out, they couldn't get their legislators are notoriously difficult to meet with, but they did, because of their persistence, they were able to get a phone conversation. And that turned out to be really, really critical. Another piece, and this is related to sort of shifting the narrative, is that you got to be in the news, and people have to be talking about what you're working on. So a key piece of the campaign was to score media coverage in local media, especially in those target legislative districts. One thing we did was identify the reporters who had covered local food and farm issues before, and we sent them a package of cottage food and said, you know, these are products you can't get anywhere else because you can only get them at the farmer's market, and these producers want to tell you more about them. Libby and Derek sent their barbecue sauce, and this is some great coverage in the Southern, which is the flagship newspaper in their region. We coordinated with other members to send letters to the editor in response to this coverage, and thanking the newspaper for covering the farmers and the issues, and encouraging lawmakers to support them. Of course, you have your typical lobby day. This is a photo from ours right before the Capitol closed because of the pandemic. Our lobby day is about quantity over quality. It's all about a show of force, and we break into groups and aim to have as many conversations at the Capitol as we can. This is Kelly Lay, another cottage food producer. The big day came when the Home to Market Act was heard in committee, and she and Libby and my colleague testified, but we didn't get a screenshot of Libby. So this is Kelly. And what I love most about this is that she's testifying in a House committee from her car. It was the quietest place that she could find. But I think this shows how the virtual model allowed for regular people to participate in the process, as opposed to traveling all the way to the Capitol and facing the intimidation of that experience, or the cost of that experience. Now, the other big focus, of course, was turning out messages to policymakers. And so for the first time, we hit, when it comes to online mobilization, it's not just about farmers. So here's what's unique about our organization. We're farmer-led and eater-powered. And that's because if we left the change making to farmers alone, they're just too busy, and you're doing the thing that matters most, which is growing food and fiber. So we rely on eaters to show up when their voices are needed. We hit a big milestone in the Home to Market Act, which was 500 supporters taking action to contact the governor. And we know when you can get 500 people to collectively send a message that they take notice. And this is, of course, my favorite picture, which is the day that the bill passed. We had a farm tour that day with the Senate sponsor, who's right there. And they took this, what I love, this hilarious, joyful picture of celebrating. It passed nearly unanimously through both houses. And here's evidence of the win. This is Derek and Libby's website, and it says there, coming January 1st, that they'll have online shopping and they'll be able to ship products because this law changed, and they're going to be able to ship products within Illinois because of this change. Let's see. Because of their effort and because of this campaign, Libby and Derek were named the Local Food Change Makers of the Year, and this was awarded at the Illinois State Fair. And I'm going to cut this a little short. Let's see, coming off the heels of this victory, we're looking at, what's next for how do we leverage the power that we've gained from this win. And so some of the other issues that we're looking at now. So one is farm to school and the power of public procurement to build local food systems. We're looking at creating at farmers market vendor licenses. There's a real challenge for people who sell meat, eggs, and dairy vendors. They pay really costly permits in every single county that they sell in. So we're looking to create a single statewide permit for vendors. And then we have to address the bottleneck in meat processing, which is a problem everywhere in the country. So we're looking at solutions to address that. And then it's not pictured here, but we're always working on farm nutrient runoff, water pollution, the climate crisis, and racial equity in agriculture. And so I want to just sort of summarize the process, our organizing process. So in the first stage, we listen in one-on-ones, build trusting relationships between and among producers. And then in those safe, trusting relationships, issues emerge. Those are problems with a solution that we can work toward. And then we identify directly impacted people and begin the campaign. And then we evaluate the issue using our good issue criteria. The next piece, of course, is you got to develop a campaign and execute the campaign and tactics, and then win and celebrate. And then finally, you've got to do the important part of learning. So debrief, reflect, learn. And that's where the shifting the narrative comes, where you're begin thinking differently about what you were able to do. And then you really got to you can't just win in the legislature, you also got to take it to the next step, which is most laws need rules, administrative rules. So we work with the Department of Public Health and State Department of Agriculture to write rules for any law we pass. And then we write our own guides so that we can help people follow the laws as they are. Okay, so that is in the time that I had, that's our process. And I really look forward to hearing from Jason and hearing your questions.
Thank you so much, Liz. I know that that's brewing up a ton of questions for everybody. And so if you have them, you can drop them in now before Jason starts, and we'll record them and save them till the end. And without further ado, I'll pass it off to Jason. Thank you so much, Jason.
Okay, I was expecting a little bit more of a breather in between the two, but it's all well. I am Jason Lindsay, North Carolina farmer and organizer with SAAFON, which is the Southeastern African American Farm and Organic Network. SAAFON, we really got our beginnings in the early 2000s through the work of Mama Cynthia Hayes and Dr. Owusu Bendele out of Louisiana, who really saw who really saw things coming through legislation such as USDA organic certification and Black farmers not being able to take advantage of these things. Even though a lot of the farmers, in particular in the South, already grew organically. You know, even for myself, growing up in Eastern North Carolina, from a traditionally, Southern Black rural family, Grandma, we couldn't afford fertilizer. That was the reality of it. We couldn't afford to spray and things of that sort. So soil integrity, being able to crop rotation, resting your field, all these things were things in which we did to ensure our crop and the health of the food and things of that sort. So with that being said, as things progressed and there began to be like huge price differentials between conventional and organic, a lot of farmers couldn't take advantage of it. So Mama Cynthia Hayes in particular went to work in getting Black farmers certified throughout the Southeast. I want to say there were less than a dozen Black certified farmers in the United States when she began that work. As she progressed in that work, by the conclusion of that phase within SAAFON, there were over 300 certified organic farmers throughout the United States. But then, sometimes when you cross one hurdle, it just leads you to the next one. And what we found out was that we still weren't getting what we needed. We had that certification, we were in position to do it, but we weren't getting that representation at the marketplace. We wasn't being allowed into certain places or to hold certain contracts. So it still put us short of our marker. So and then with the passing of Mama Hayes, it really put SAAFON in a shift. And in that shift, a lot of information within SAAFON was lost. With that information being lost, that was the relationships, that upon now, with me being 4 years into the organization, it's still so many things that we are uncovering and hopping right on, mending those relationships that were lost in the transition of Mama Cynthia Hayes. And that kind of led us into like, what do we need? What was the essence of that work? Because Mama Hayes was a work that would show up. It was the type of work that would literally come in and sit down with you and have that conversation and want to hear from you, and the work be built off of that conversation. So throughout. So when we began to look again at what does the SAAFON work look like now that we know that we're not getting the level of representation, SAAFON, we split ourselves out into state coordinators. With these state coordinators, we literally went out to be able to document like what state our membership was in, to literally build those relationships to see what was needed out there and how could we serve in that capacity. And with that, in a lot of ways, we were open, we will allow in because we came in through the right ways. We came in through the ways of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, which a lot of our membership and things of that sort overlap. We came in through the ways of Mississippi Association of Cooperatives. We came in through the ways of Operation Spring Plant throughout North Carolina. We came away through so many in Georgia and all throughout the Southeast of collaborations with other organizations that we did to be able to show that the links and relationships, showing that, and to make sure that we weren't coming in, putting in another wheel just like the one we have in, but we were coming to advance the work, to see in which ways we could fulfill the work. And we were coming in ways in which we wanted to build trust from the gate. And what we found was astonishing. In a lot of ways, we already knew. What we found was the forgotten farmlands of America. And majority of our property, our farmers, our farm owners were in position and they had the land, but when you got there, that's all you had. Majority of the time, there was a rundown house if they even lived on the house, or sometimes they were housing on the farms, but majority of the time it was just land. These were the places where, the infrastructure necessary for us to be able to actually conduct business, for us to be able to roll production through, are not there in many places. We noticed that being able to, find quality farm help, be able to actually train people up, being able to actually find people that are interested in farming and be able to show that, and how do we interconnect through the generations, the importance of farming. All that was another hurdle that we found that was overwhelming throughout the Southeast. And so we went to work. We said, okay, what can we do? In the wake of that, we started, when COVID happened, we were able to issue out some emergency relief funds. And we were able to do this all throughout the Southeast. And for the first time, for a lot of our farms, they were able to put in some levels of infrastructure that wasn't able to go up before, such as digging wells and putting up fencing to be able to protect production fields and things of that sort. So immediately now, all the money is in hand. Like, okay, I can put up my fence now. But that labor piece I just talked about, that comes up again. It was taking our farmers so long to be able to do this. And I began to get calls as a state coordinator at the time. One had really dove in and really sitting down with the farmers. I began to get calls left and right behind you know, I need help out here, man. And also, I was one that was actually known for showing up in that capacity. So with that, we are, I began to call farmers all throughout the state and seeing, you know, who could show up. You know, this is a principle that I took from way back when in my grandfather being a sharecropper. Majority of the sharecroppers in the South were given more land than they could actually tend. All right, they were given more land to tend than that was realistic. So how they were able to do and to get by and still be able to meet the demands is they had to come together to do it. All right, so hypothetically speaking, on Monday and Tuesday, you know, 2 farmers or 3 farmers will go to one field. You know, on Tuesday and Thursday, I mean, on Wednesday and Thursday, they'll go to another field. And on Friday, they'll go to one field, one of their fields in the morning, another field in the afternoon. You know, all week long, they work together. And with these families, because these weren't just 2 individual farmers, these are 2 farming family units that were coming together to make sure that the things that needed to be done were done. And at the end of the week, at the end of that season, they got it done year after year after year after year. And the relationships were built not just out of, you know, your family's beautiful, I love to see y'all playing things, but it was built out of necessity. It was built by understanding the importance of one another. So we kind of reached back into that to see, like, let's see if that could work in 2020. And it did. It was a huge hit. And it checked so many boxes, even more than we were anticipating. What we found was, and year after year, a lot of the ag, and especially in the ag world, and I know in some level, all of us are familiar with the huge conferences that were thrown before COVID, and how these conferences would be thrown in these huge hotels and different places and things of that sort. Ultimately, tens of thousands of dollars being spent in the name of agriculture, but not in particularly going into the hands, into the ag world. I've personally, you know, been a part of, you know, making sure that checks are written for hotels for $20,000+, you know, for a weekend, you know, for 300+ people. These are the type of bills that we were flipping just to be able to bring farmers together, just to be able to, you know, give farmers, you know, a breath, you know, to be able to actually breathe, come off the farm for a minute, and actually fellowship as farmers. But in the wake of COVID, it didn't allow us to do that. Not only did we not have the privilege of going out and staying in these hotels anymore, it was dangerous. And then on top of that, all the things that we knew for moving weren't so doing it right there. Hold on, baby. I'm sorry, I got my baby just waking up. And so what we sought to do with a lot of funds that would have gone into hotels and things of that sort, we said, okay, how can we bring these dollars to the farm? And we did so in doing brigades. And with these farm brigades, I think brigades stem out of both Central and Southern Americas, with actually the same type of peasant farming, folks coming together to be able to make ends meet. It's the same dialogue. When I traveled in Puerto Rico, I found out it was a language barrier, overtly, you know, but the story, you know, of the people, the story of the land connection, the story of my grandmother words, how I got over, it's the same, you know. The hugest asset in a community is the community itself. So the same lies through agriculture. So when we began to look at these fabrics of community and where we have fallen short, a lot of that has come from our lack of seeing the importance of each other. And something that I've done, and this work within SAAFON has proven to me, is how is showing, one, where is that point in which we stop having that connectivity with each other. And I connected that to the same point in which we stop relying directly on the land. The second, which we could go in, it was as easy as a flip of a switch. The importance of our neighbor, became a little bit smaller, and things of that sort. But in the wake of the things that we are seeing today, we are seeing a lot more importance across board of one another. Being closed in for a couple of months, and let you know just how important it is. Have someone to talk to and touch. Some folks got that lesson more than others. Some folks got that by complete isolation. Other people just got tortured by their children. So no matter what that story may have been, it's lessons that we have learned, and what it has brought to the forefront is, again, the importance of one another and the importance of that development in relationship, so that when it comes time for the campaigns and things of that sort, that we're moving together and trusting on one accord. Because in SAAFON, we really stopped to take the time. Our first objective is to craft an environment that is conducive for relationship building. That's the first step we want to do. We want our farmers to come into a space that is they're most comfortable in. And we found the most success for that on the farm, on their farms. With the brigades, we actually sponsored that. The farmer not only got to have other trained hands come out to help them on projects, but they also had the opportunity, but they also got an honorarium for doing that. We came together, we ate, we made sure we took the time that everybody knew who they were sharing space with. And magically, the people that, me thinking of the forefront, okay, I know they do, goats and they do goats. So in my head, I want to make sure these two people meet up. It naturally happens. Just like once the soil is ready as a farmer, once you get that soil ready, once you add those amendments in and you plant that good seed in good soil, it's just a waiting game from there. So it's the same type of attitude that we take in relationship building. It's the same type of attitude that we take in building the SAAFON vision. Because the SAAFON vision is not a vision that comes, from a boardroom or from a skyscraper building. It is the vision that comes from our membership. We are a membership-led organization. So it is when we go out and we have these conversations, when we conduct these spaces in which farmers are coming together, not only to be able to fellowship with other farmers, but to get things done, to actually accomplish things on their farms. When that is done, they are drawing up what the future of SAAFON looks like. They are telling us, in what ways we need to work these things, and charging us in a lot of ways to go and to make it happen and let them know what they can do. So it is something that we build as a community. It's an answer that we only have as a collective. But we found once we get ourselves in these points, it's the essence of healing that happens in SAAFON. It's the essence of we look at farming. Yes, we know the land has to pay for itself. That bills do come in and things of that sort. But we hold land in the aspect of land stewarding. And how do we live in relationship with each other in the ground underneath our feet? And what connections lie there? And once we find those connections, we find that the very things that are, ailing us as a people, these elements are laying in the ground underneath our feet. The same things that we are seeing to plague us. And I even give you an example. From time to time, when I'm sent from one station to another, to actually go from one farm to another to see in what ways I can be of service, a lot of times we do things that we are just identifying the native plants and things of that sort that are on the land, and we see like what's there, and from that we see what's best to what's the next step. The land tells you, just like in our organizing. The way SAAFON we attach ourselves is the farmer. We actually listening to them, and they lead us to where we need to be. Well, the same thing in farming. When we're farming, the land tells. We don't go and say, I want to do broccoli. Your land may not be conducive for broccoli. It may be a real expensive bill you have to flip to make it conducive for broccoli. But you may have the perfect plot for cut flowers. It may just like, you may be able to put cut flowers in, just a little irrigation, and it just it just takes right off for you. So it's these type of things that we look at. And it's these type of ways that we actually look at organizing, and to be as organic as the work, as the ground underneath our feet. And to see these connections and see these levels of importance, and to understand that truly you are because I am. like in essence, you know, I can't afford for my neighbor to have to be without. You know, I always make the example, especially, you know, me and my family, we've just moved into our first farm here in Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. And we're sitting right on the edge of town, but still in town. And across the back of the land is a path that the community has made probably over 50 years ago, that folks just travel through to just kind of cut through. And most of us women and children. And people ask me, how are you going to get folk to stay off your land? And I told them, I said, that's not the point. I don't want to get folks to stay off my land, because I can build the tallest fence, you know, but we have also climbed the tallest fence. And ultimately, if I am one who has, and I'm on the inside, and everybody outside of me does not have, eventually they're coming in. They're gonna jump this fence because they know it's inside of there, right? So nature does not do that. Nature does not block each other off, but it conducts a network in which actually have a sharing system, and that they share information, they share minerals and nutrients. You see, the actual life force itself. Once a tree is cut down in the forest, other trees around it feeds that stump sugars for years after to allow that root system to live, even after it's being cut off. Once you start to cut down a tree at the tree line, it sends off hormones, pheromones through the soil for up to miles, letting other trees know that, hey, they're cutting down trees around here, watch out. It's these level of networking that nature provides. And I feel that when we step into these same streams, these organic streams in organizing, we will find the same wholeness and completion that we find in our organic world. You see what I'm saying? There's no, the only healing that the planet is looking for is the healing from what we've done to it. And in us leaving it alone, that'll do a lot. You know, right by itself, you know, if we just stop, you know, that'll do a lot. But if we actually become intentional around what we're doing with these same principles of wholeness, with these same levels of self-love, because ultimately community love must begin with self-love, then we'll find the true power within, which is collective power. I don't know if I went over my time or not, but thank you so much. Any questions or anything for me, I'm more than willing to answer that.
Thank you so much, Jason. Wow. I just want us all to just to celebrate Jason. Thank you so much for that. And we can take a deep breath together as we go into Q&A. We've had some great questions come in. So just a big inhale, a big out breath. Thank you so much for both Liz and Jason for sharing. I wanted to start actually with where you ended, Jason, this piece about self-love. We had a session earlier this week that talked a lot about the very real issue of suicide and mental health, mental illness, and struggles that farmers face in particular, and how this is intertwined with you know, people bringing their full selves to organizing work. And so I just wanted to hear from both Liz and Jason about that piece, starting at self-love, and since it is relational organizing, how you as organizers make that connection starting at self and checking in on how people are doing personally. And we'll start there, and then we'll go to some more questions after. So, and whoever wants to go first, if you have something. Yeah.
I'm gonna open the floor up to you, Liz.
Well, Charlotte, one of the, what this makes me think about is one of the things that we realize in our experience is that most people don't understand the pressures that different levels of policy are sort of putting on you, like different decisions that are made. And so, especially farmers, we have so many farmers who, think that they are failing because they haven't worked hard enough, when in reality, it's a whole system that's built in hopes for their failure, because there's such a consolidated, sort of agriculture and food system that has no time or place for sustainability or local food systems. And so what we're doing, the sort of big part of the mission of what we're trying to do when we're building these relationships is creating a trusted space in which someone can begin to see and feel and talk about the pressures and begin to analyze those and where they actually come from, and that they are not because of a shortage of your own, self, but that often it's because the blinders come off to the system. And when you start to understand the system, then you can understand, better how the odds are stacked against you and how that has to change.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Can you reframe the question for me one more time?
Yeah, I was just thinking about all of these pressures that farmers are facing individually, that are leading to depression and severe mental illness with farmers. And that piece about self-love, I was thinking about how you talked about self-love being that key, that portal to community love. And so when you're working with a farmer individually, how you take that into account and thinking about like leadership building and thinking about like framing power structures and thinking about how you build like farmer gatherings, or like centering that self-love, knowing that farmers have like particular pressures that are anti-self-love.
Yeah, I know. When it comes to self-love, particularly me, I'm just seeing so many farm faces just flash across my face, in particular our elders, and I'm not going to get emotional, but the Black farmer of the South in particular, the last generation of my father, my grandfather in particular, suffered tremendous loss. And it's still alive, and if it's dead, if it has died, the grass haven't even grown over the grave yet. That's how young the death is. So it's just tremendous levels of trauma that exist, in the Black community when you even say the word farming. So there's an all around, even on the farm with the farmers, in the conversation you have with the farmers' grandchildren and how they relate to the land, in the conversations you have with the farmers' children and how they see themselves in the land transitioning, there's so much that is not dealt with. So how SAAFON has positioned ourselves is we have placed this at the forefront of our work, is to say that the healing, it has to happen first before we can talk about, putting together the brilliant business plan or the next best, collectively owned co-op, we have to heal some things. And a lot of times that is just having the conversation, is just allowing them to get to the point that they're open and free enough to talk about it. Because in so many ways, in so many places, it hasn't been talked about. And to Liz's point, there are so many things that are weights on their shoulders that they got so much going on that they haven't even had a chance to look around and see that 4 more weights have been put on their shoulders. Making it impossible, making it inconvenient even to be a blessing to other farmers, making it inconvenient to be a blessing to your consumers because you can't afford to, And so what we have done is slow down and saying, okay, I know that this is a time of, a lot going on, but we can't afford to not heal at this point. We can't afford to not take the time to deal with some of the things that have happened, in and around our community. Because it's only at that point do we actually get to a place in which we can actually move forward, to try to push in Southern Black farming community, for certain things at this level without doing some healing, we're just gonna gain more momentum, more money, and things of that sort, just to have to stop further down the road to deal with this thing that we need to deal with right now. I feel that we're in a time, that's even bigger than any, group or subgroup that is making it mandatory to heal. It's kind of like heal or get gone type deal. And so in that healing, for me, agriculture did not start with a price tag. It started because my wife was pregnant with our first child, and I wanted to feed her the best. I read too much in school. I knew that what they were putting in the food and things of that sort, and I wasn't going to settle for any second grade, anything. So I went to work, and when I did so, I found a part of myself I didn't know I was missing, and that's my whole generation in a nutshell. We have found a way to romanticize this farming piece in a way that hasn't been done in a very long time. And that, excuse my language, but that irritates the hell out of our elders because of the trauma that hasn't been dealt with. So on one end, you're having this tremendously romanticized, story of farming. That, hey, I came in, and when I touched the soil, I got my energy back, and now I can breathe through both nostrils, and you get all these great stories. And on the other end, they say, hey, I've been here, I've been holding this land, I've been trying to make sure that at least our land stays in Black hands and in our family for generations to come, and they have beat my ass. Over the years, and I ain't had nobody to come in, and nobody wants to take the farm. My son don't want to farm. He don't want to farm. This and that, and now we have this marriaging happening, and with these two total, cold and warm front coming through, but it's balancing it out, and that's that self-love that is being shown. That I've seen me come into spaces and speak. And sparkle is coming to my elders' eyes again because a young person is talking about farming with enthusiasm. I've seen this, I've seen me coming to places where they like, we don't want to do anything. We're tired. We want to go home. And after we show them what we're trying to do, not what we've done, but what's in our hearts to do, that they're willing to move in times where they want, But the self-love, really has to start with dealing with some real ugly stuff, and it isn't anything that it isn't an outward dealing, it's homework. It's that homework that you have to get done, the studying, that you have to do when other folks are just in other places, but yeah, I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you so much. And we have a question from the chat that's a follow-up to that and that homework piece. Do your organizations ever work with mental health professionals or ancestral healers as part of that process of having folks show up with their truest selves and everything that comes to the table with that.
Well, we don't have a formal relationship with sort of providers, but we are always keeping in our resources. We always have like Farm Aid's phone number, 1-800-FARM-AID, and we often refer people if they're in crisis to contact Farm Aid, who we adore, and who provide that kind of immediate assistance to people in crisis. So yeah.
Well, our membership is actually made up of a boatload of healers and doulas, and even like priestess and pastors and things of that sort. They kind of make very unique spaces, and they have really been the anchoring pieces to this healing process as we've kind of come together upon our collective endeavors when we actually create the space together. We don't have anyone formally. There are third-party people that counselors and things that we bring in for group interactions and things of that sort. Things of that sort that we are looking at, in particular when we're looking at bringing farmers together in more formal capacities. That we're actually looking at, different type of conflict resolution classes and things of that sort to be able to pull our farmers through, to be able to learn how to deal with, to agree to disagree. Yeah, but yeah.
Thank you all so much. Wanted to start with that piece about self-love. And then going on from there, we have a question. In what ways does your organizational structure help you prioritize your projects and policies to find success?
Like SAAFON, we're also, I mentioned, we're a membership-based organization. And so members decide our priorities and set our policy agenda. So the organizational structure where when a farmer becomes a member of the Alliance, they are invited to caucus with other farmers that do the same type of production. So we have a local food farmer caucus, we have a soil health caucus, we have the beginnings of livestock producers and certified organic producers who are, they come together, and that's really where the relationships among farmers are built and fostered. And that's where we try to create the spaces to, as I mentioned, to understand those pressures, start understanding the system, identifying issues and seeing where those issues emerge, and then those folks choosing and selecting our issue campaign priorities.
Thank you, Liz.
I'm sorry, can you rephrase that question for me one
Yeah, the question was, what strategies do you find most successful? Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. I highlighted one for myself, the next one. In what ways does your organizational structure help you prioritize projects and policies to find success? So yeah, I'm thinking about how did your strategy how your organization is organized lead to brigade work in particular?
Yeah, the brigade work in particular came out of really, it started in North Carolina. We ran through Georgia as well, and we're looking to start up in Mississippi in the first of the year. Excuse me. But in North Carolina, it came after the weight of our COVID relief fund that we put out, and there were other organizations that were actually having relief funds for small farmers, farmers of color as well, and so it was a lot of dollars that folks had received, but they still didn't have the capacity to get these things up. So we brought the farmers together to actually come together to complete projects. We put up, over 8 acres of fencing. We cleared roads, cut down trees and things of that sort to clear roads through. Just a series of things. We did like 10 acres of like tomato staking, stringing. Like we did some extreme stuff just to get people, you know, over the hump, because a lot of folk were trying to increase capacity in the wake of COVID. And they needed just a little help to be able to do that. And so we just brought folks together. We found, you know, collective ways that we could, you know, incentivize it. You know, how can we, you know, cover your travel? How can, you know, make sure that you eat lunch that day and make sure you don't have to cook a meal that night. You know, things like that we just made a little bit more convenient for the farmers. And that's really all that was needed. But kind of one kind of drum roll after another, with us really just listening to what our farmers were saying and understanding, you know, what role we could play and what capacity we could bring.
Thank you. And just like digging into that structure that allowed for that like agility to be able to address problems that way. I'm curious, I mean, ASAN, we're a state, you know, and we think that Alabama is big, but SAAFON, it's like whole Southeast and the Caribbean. And so, yeah, how do you divide up that structure? What do meetings look like, or chapters look like, to be able to lead into that, like, oh, we've all got projects we want to be working on together?
Yeah, we really, it's like, I don't know how to explain it, because it's like a wave comes through and certain people pick up on it and they'll call in. So I always receive these calls in like some synchronized wave where I have certain farmers that are already kind of, whether they may or may not know each other, you know, but they're looking for the same thing at the same time. You know, I may have one farmer, you know, they need, you know, a flatbed trailer to be able to move some logs off the land. The other farmer needs, you know, someone that knows how to work a chainsaw. You know, one farmer has a flatbed trailer, the other farmer has a, you know, and all these, it just lines up that way. So it really just understanding how to be the eyes and ears, you know, and really seeing those connecting points as they pop up. Now, it could get easily overwhelming if you get the word out too loud, too quick, because you may give some ideas more than people, you know, having that idea, which is all well and good if you can hold it. But when we're really looking at these things, how we start with the seed, it's kind of a temperature check. We kind of just give calls around, not to alarm anyone, you know, but just to see, you know what's going on, how you feeling. And it's nothing out of the ordinary, because we're relationship based. I can call you and we might talk an hour before I get to what I called you for. You know, sometimes it's a little more convenient than others, you know, but it's something that you try to build in, you know, you try to build in that space, you know, because you understand that's going to happen. And once you get that temperature check, you can find, you know, you try to thumb out a few before they even, you know what's cooking a little bit, you know, and to see how you can kind of organize those pieces. Understanding that history is another piece, you know, you really can't, the way that SAAFON does its work, you really can't do that without those relationships being in place, without, you know, me being able to call in the middle of a season and get an answer. You know, from a farmer think, oh, he's important enough to answer the phone, you know, you know, in the middle of the season. So those things have to be at the forefront, you know, and then when you have that, now when I get a call, you know, my farmers are not only answering, they're happy to hear from me, you know, and you know, and they're asking about my family, you know, before we even get into, you know, why I called. But it comes with, you have to kind of seek out folks with a certain type of attitude, an openness, that are willing to understand the importance of collective work and responsibility.
Thank you, Jason. The way you've illustrated it with that wave, it makes me think of like synapses of the brain, or like mycelium too. I know we all like to talk about mycelium, and building that network. And it makes me think about how, you know, it's not just you reaching out and contacting farmers, but also farmers contacting each other. And so I was wondering if maybe you could both talk about what strategies you find them most successful in bridging relationships farmer to farmer.
That's what I call when the work works for you. Like, that's literally what I go, like, when you can put them into space and you see the numbers exchanging, you didn't have to say anything. It's like, okay, it's working for me at this point. You know, when I get a call and there's two farmers on the call and not one, they already talk to each other and they just three-way me in, you know, to, you know, those type of things. Or when I get a call and they say, hey, I lost that at the gathering the other day, I lost such and such's number. But I wanted to reach back out to them, you know, so now I'm giving the kind, you know, you really, for us, we really want that first. We want the farmers, you know, talking and then kind of come and let us know, you know, from that point, you know, how we can kind of fill in the gaps from there, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to fill in the gaps, you know, and so, but that is the forefront of organizing is farmer to farmer. You know, the farmers have to connect for themselves. You know, and then at that point, then we can truly be of service to farmers. And I love how Liz put it when she was speaking, saying how, you know, the eaters kind of step in, you know, when the farmers' capacity is at max. And anybody that farms know that that's 9 months out of the year, if you're lucky, you know. So, but it has to be with folk. If not the farmer themselves, it has to be the folk that are directly aligned with the mission and understand the needs of a farmer. And if you can get the eaters to do that, then that is a perfect marriage to have it. But within SAAFON, as a farmer-led organization, the farmer-to-farmer mission is at the forefront of how we organize and what we're promoting first. I want farmers talking to each other more than they talk to me. I want to be let in on the farmer-to-farmer conversation, you know, to see what are y'all thinking, you know, and things of that sort, instead of trying to come in with the bright idea. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
I love that. I want to be let in on the farmer-to-farmer conversation. I never said that, but that's how I feel too, Jason. So definitely farmers, our members exchanging phone numbers with each other is an absolute sign of that we're on the right track and we're being successful. But, you know, we have to be really, really intentional to create community and culture. And if you don't create community and culture, a culture will be created for you. And so we try to, we actually, that's one of the things that when I mentioned our caucuses, we actually talk a lot about what kind of culture do you want to have and uphold together. And there's some accountability around, you know, upholding the community values and stuff. But look, I mean, we're in food. So gathering and sharing, breaking bread together, that was really how for so long we built relationships. Unfortunately, now with COVID, that's become a lot more difficult. And so we've had to transition. And frankly, it's not the same. You know, virtual happy hours, it's not the same. And it's been very difficult. The last, you know, 2 years have just been really difficult. And it means that we have to put people in what I think are sometimes uncomfortable positions of like having to, you know, do things on their computer that, you know, sit at a screen for a lot longer than they would normally. So yeah, I'll just stop there. It's hard work, but if you're intentional about it, it's the most important part of the work.
Thanks, Liz. I think this feeds into this next question, that since farmers and products are so varied, do you have strategies you find the most successful in fostering common connectivity points? So yeah, how do you make those connections so that those numbers are exchanged?
I know in SAAFON we have a thing that we're in the process of putting together now called clustering. We actually looking at, you know, geographic locations of our membership, looking at, you know, levels of production, different types of production. You know, certain farmers are, you know, looking at textiles. Certain farmers are looking at, you know, annual crops and things of that sort, and kind of grouping them together that way, and seeing in what ways did these groups marry. You know, and looking at, you know, especially the biggest one that came across in the brigades piece as well was the geographic location, and how far is too far, apart from each other for collaborative, intimate collaborative work, without it becoming a strain, became like real questions that, real kind of measuring tapes and things that begin to come out to try to find that threshold. But that became a huge part of it. Sorry, did I answer your question? Okay, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, you did. You don't have to be quiet though. You can keep talking. You have more to say. That answered the question. Thank you.
I don't think I have much more to add. I mean, we bring our there's a little self-organizing. We're bringing people together in caucuses, so we sort of already do a version of the clustering, and so there's a bit of like self-identifying as certain type of production and then coming together in that group.
And then certain farmers may be, looking at, doing a value-added product, where they might, grow, hypothetically speaking, they might grow tomatoes, but, not grow basil and want to do a tomato paste or something like that, where they'll be linked in with other farmers that might do things different. So we try to look at these things, as open as possible, but at the same time, having like concrete lines that exist, making each group unique within themselves, and making sure that demands are being met within each group.
Thank you. And maybe we could just go like super technical, since we are talking about like different kinds of building environments. There's building environments in person, building environments over Zoom, and then like work days, during brigade work. How do you build environments where you're carrying through that relationship building that is so essential, that culture of relationship building. And so maybe just talking about like, I don't know, like the technical things of we sit in a circle or we eat first, that kind of thing. That would be really helpful for us as a network as we're trying to foster that space together.
Well, some of what you're already doing it. I mean, we do lots and lots of Zoom breakouts. There's like lots of small groups, and it's not always, this is what I'm talking about when I say it's not always like super comfortable, because we have to put, we have to put people into, it's can be touchy-feely, right? And sometimes I think it feels like it's not the work. Like, oh, this is icebreaker time, but you have to integrate it, and people doing it have to know what it's for and like what is the outcome of doing this thing. So I just was pulling up some of our kind of group agreements, and a couple that come to mind. One is that I just love is also taking time to celebrate. I mean, one of the ways that we bring people together, I think the best is when we like have victory parties. And that's one of the nice things about, having issues that are successful is like throwing parties. One time we had a really big win on industrial hemp, and we made had a cake printed, and it had a photo of the governor signing the bill on the cake, and we got to like cut the cake and eat it together. We weren't a big fan of the governor, except that he did that thing. So so I think that's another sort of way that we build community.
Thanks, Liz.
Well, when we bring folks together, we try to always have like some type of opening ceremony, whether it's an icebreaker or like just something to really be very intentional on what we're bringing into the space. Whether, that becomes spiritual with some libations or something, but some type of recognition that we're kind of stepping in, we're standing on holy ground now type deal. During the time, if there is going to be like, in-depth dialogue back and forth, we may even set some rules of engagement. And those rules of engagement are always, created within that space. We ask folk, how do you want to be treated today type deal. And the room actually, sets forth those rules on how they want to engage with each other for that day or series of days. Also, upon leaving, we don't like to just, walk out of space either. We like to close out, space in some type of formal capacity to understand, that even though we, may be going in different directions, it's something, collective that we all hold and all are responsible for. And we try to make that very, we try to really bring that home. A lot of our SAAFON spaces is a very, very grounding energy. A lot of times, our farmers is tremendously in their heads around, problem solving and things of that sort. And farming is a type of work that, is sometimes you really get into these points where there is no thoughts. It's just movement, so to really be, to have the time to sit in a space and be recognized as farmers is something that we really cherish and that we really put forth as a what's the word I'm looking for, as a therapy, so to speak, to make sure that, the needs of the farmer, seen and unseen, is being somewhat catered to.
Thank you. All right, and now we have a question from Alice. So we've talked a lot about base building and community building and relationship building, and she's interested in hearing more about the next step of turning that into action. And we got to hear a little bit about the process, Liz, and also Jason, how that kind of like gathering and that creating that wave, but that process of turning it into action. If you'd like to share more about that, that would be so wonderful.
Sure. So in our experience, I mean, the potential issues or those kind of pressures are often most revealed when an organizer is meeting one-on-one with farmers. Not that issues don't emerge collectively or when, we kind of have a check-in on how you're doing, but we really find, certainly in the virtual world, that it's the one-on-ones in person is where, we're identifying the issues that farmers really face. And so what we do next when we understand that there's an emerging issue, we can't just sort of start a campaign or sort of say, oh, okay, this is the issue now. So the first thing that we need to do is sort of write it up, and what we call that an emerging issue. And so we actually ask the person for their permission to write it up as a story, and we write their experience. And then we put it out there with like an invitation, either a form to sign up, to say like, I'm also impacted in this way, or an invitation to contact the organizer, either way. And then we send that out as far and wide as we can get it and get it shared. And then sometimes we have to actually take it another step and actually talk to a reporter or other, sort of, media to kind of, even if we don't have a solution figured out yet, but in order to like get the issue out more. And then once we've identified a sort of critical mass of people who are impacted, like let's say there's a few handfuls of people who also share that issue, then we bring them together to begin to look at what are some of the solutions. And then when we have some consensus around solutions, potential solutions, that's when we can actually move toward it becoming a priority, a potential priority, and then toward a campaign. So there's quite a process through, we can't go from 0 to 60, overnight. These kind of emerging issues can take a year. But it's a year of organizing throughout while you're, before you launch a campaign.
Thank you, Liz.
Definitely appreciate that. That is like a beautiful process. So I find that's not gotten to a point within that we have kind of broken it down into stages like that. But really, it has come to a point that we're really at a point that we're in a stage of doing, you know, what the brigades and a lot of other agroecological events that we have thrown over the years opened up for us is knowing that once our farmers are in space or sharing space together, they bring the answers. It's really not that like, okay, that's why it was hard, because I don't have to, you know, figure everything out, you know, and to really allowing that space to come. But right now we are really in a position where we're looking to actually build our farmers up. And seeing, you know, in what ways can we be of service for that collective work. We want to incentivize farmers coming together and working together, and seeing what does it look like, you know, when it for value-added products or textiles or and things and other things that a lot of farmers are looking at, you know, and understand that these are dreams that's bigger than them. You know, so for SAAFON right now, it's really putting that principle to work. It's like, okay, we have these principles of relationship and how we hold each other and things of that sort. And now it's time like to start to begin to practice those principles on a day-to-day basis, to see like what naturally comes of that. Because it is something that we understand that there's a road to us doing the levels of healing that is needed for us to actually come together and put it into action. And we're putting it every step, one step at a time, should I say. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. And we have time for maybe one or two questions more, but just wanted to ask, you know, we're newbies to this process. We've been around for 20 years, but we're making this shift. We're taking the relationships that we have and then moving it into doing organizing work together and envisioning that future for ourselves right now. So curious what your recommendation is to us. We're so delighted to have you here because we admire you, want to learn from you, and also want to support you. And so wondering, yeah, what do you recommend for our farmers and our network, and as we move forward in this?
Well, I'll start with a saying of one of my professors from college who recently passed away, Kemp Branch, who said, if you have a dream that you can accomplish by yourself, you're dreaming too small. So know that in moving forward, in particular in agriculture, where one great man said agriculture is the foundation of civilization. When looking at, you know, our future in these things, I said think bigger than yourself, and know that, you know, these levels of relationship is how nature and the world naturally holds itself together. And it's these simple principles that we have to stand by in building the fabrics, you know, that'll keep us warm. Some long nights to
come. Well, you know, frankly, there's a lot easier ways to make change than organizing. Community, Jason, like that one. It's really hard, it's expensive, and it's not well understood. But if you have a vision and believe that community organizing is the tool that you need to make that vision a reality, then coming to understand it, coming up with your own model, and getting out there and building those relationships with a targeted, you know, start with who you have now, and who do they know, and getting everyone who you have now on board with what the theory of change is, and then beginning with where you then you have many more organizers, more than just sort of the people on staff, because people got to understand the why organizing, why do I have to do icebreakers, like what, and if they understand the why, that it's about building power, that ultimately here's what we're trying to do. We want a sustainable agriculture, and we're not going to get sustainable agriculture without collective organizing. And if you have that, then I think that's a powerful place to start.
Thank you so much, both of you. I know my belly feels full from this session, and I feel so excited for the work going forward. And thank you all so much. We have a wonderful treat from Sarah right now that we get to see. Our graphic facilitator is going to share a reflection of the session through graphics, through design. I'll pass it off to you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
It just is going to take 1 sec.
No worries. We can give Sarah and Liz and Jason some love in the chat. Thank you so much for being with us today. This is incredible. Come off mute to ooh and ah, y'all. This is amazing. Sarah, this looks great.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great representation.
And she did this now? Just now?
She did this. She was doing this the whole time. Isn't
Wow.
that amazing?
I love that reaction so much. Yeah, it's amazing. She has magical powers, I think. Sarah, this is amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you. I mean, there was so much wisdom shared today. I felt really moved.
Yeah. Mm. Ah, these are so great.
And you'll be able to see this after the session too. This won't disappear and poof into the universe. You'll be able to chew on this, look at it, come back to it as we're doing meetings with each other. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Beautiful. Charlotte, do you want me to take over?
Yeah, I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, Sarah, again, just really big ups to you, and thank you for giving your gift to us and to the movement. You have an incredible gift. Thank you. And another huge, enormous thank you to Liz and Jason. Y'all are phenomenal, and I just feel really grateful for both of your souls specifically, as well as for the organizations that y'all move with, and just the really powerful, resonant work that y'all are doing. I feel really grateful to have learned so much from y'all on this session, to have learned so much from y'all prior to this, and I just feel really excited about continuing to move in these resonant ways to build the food system that we need and deserve in this country. So thank you all so much. While I'm gonna talk for a minute, but would love for y'all attendees to share in the chat, just like, are there quotes, are there sort of takeaways, things that are rumbling around in your belly from this session? Yeah, just any kind of like impact that you are carrying with you. We would love to hear what that is, in addition to, yeah, continuing to just pour out with love for Liz and Jason. So this is the last session of this year's virtual forum, which is wild. So I want to take just a couple minutes to thank some key contributors that made this whole forum possible. First of all, in addition to Liz and Jason, we had just an amazing lineup of session leaders and speakers. So just want to give big ups to all of them. Yeah, just feel really grateful to be sort of in solidarity with and in movement with so many great and powerful farmers and organizers and leaders. So thank you to all our speakers. Our sponsors for making this financially possible, and those have been getting shout outs on our Facebook page, on our forum landing page. But yeah, big appreciation to all of our sponsors for contributing to making the forum possible and for making it financially accessible. We offer the forum on a sliding scale, and we know that a lot of people, especially this year, but really just in general, like couldn't afford to attend otherwise. So that's a big piece of what we do. I want to thank you to all our volunteers, folks that have kind of helped us behind the scenes, helped in the planning and execution. Specifically, I want to lift up our incredible forum committee. We have a group of farmers and other ASAN members that have been meeting since June, I believe, and just really putting in the hours to making this program, making this event all that it was. So the forum this year was not just this set of virtual workshops since December 2nd, but it also included 3 kindling work days that we held in November at different farms around the state. And so just a lot of moving pieces, a lot of work, and our forum committee is really the anchor of all of that. So big appreciation to them. I want to show some special love for the ASAN staff. So Charlotte and Mars are both on here, and then an extra special boatload of love for our phenomenal forum coordinator, Sophie, who just, this was Sophie's first year working with the forum and just really knocked the ball out of the park. Everything has been so smooth and powerful, and just really grateful for Sophie on the team. Grateful also, shout out for Mona, Sophie's sort of right-hand person. Mona, you're the best. Yeah, so we, just feel really grateful for this community. This is a community organization and a community event, and I just really, it couldn't happen without every single person that shows up and puts in time, whether it's in advance to make it happen or whether it's in the moment by attending and shouting out questions and taking the work home to put into action. So with that, I do want to give one final shout out. If you're not an ASAN member yet, hopefully this session more than any one other session should, I would hope it lights a fire under you to join this community and be part of this collective power that we're building, this collective movement. We invite y'all to organize with us. So we are really excited to take this work on and excited for it to be led by our farmers in our network, and would love to count you among those if you're not already. With that, just want to close us with a big word of love. So thank y'all so much, and please don't be a stranger. Let's build together in 2022.